The all-terrain vehicle's engine roared as we made our way through golden dunes. The sun was slowly descending, transforming the desert into a sea of gold and elongated shadows. Claudia was checking the map spread across her knees, her dark curls tossed by the wind coming through the open windows. "According to my calculations, the ruins should be about 5 kilometers in that direction," she said, pointing toward a chain of higher dunes. "We need to set up camp before it gets completely dark." I reduced the speed, looking for stable ground. The Land Rover swayed on the sand as I scanned the horizon. "There," Claudia indicated, pointing toward a rock formation that offered some protection against the night wind. "It will be perfect to set up camp." I parked the vehicle in the shadow of the rocks. While we unloaded the luggage, Claudia kept photographing the landscape and taking notes in her notebook. Her enthusiasm was contagious. For her, each expedition was a promise of discoveries. For me, it was mainly an opportunity to observe her in her element. "Do you think we'll find the temple tomorrow?" "Component placement," I asked while we were setting up the tent. "It has to be there, Alex," she replied with bright eyes. "The texts I translated are very specific about its location. A temple dedicated to Wadjet, built during the Ptolemaic dynasty, but following much older rites." We prepared a simple dinner under an increasingly starry sky. Claudia enthusiastically explained her theories about forgotten cults while I fed the small campfire. "It's fascinating to think that physical transformation rituals could have existed, not just spiritual ones," she commented while consulting her notes by the light of the flashlight. "There are references to chosen women who became guardians of forbidden knowledge, adopting serpentine forms." I hugged her tightly, interrupting her dissertation. She curled up against my chest, sighing. "Enough snakes for today. Let's go to sleep. Tomorrow will be a long day." We lay down, wrapped in the calmness of the desert, the silence occasionally broken by the crackling of the dying embers. Fatigue quickly overcame me. I woke up startled in the middle of the night, with a strange feeling of emptiness. Claudia's side of the sleeping bag was cold. I felt around, believing that perhaps she had momentarily left the tent. "Claudia?" "Logically," I called softly. Only the wind responded. I jumped up, exiting the tent. The moon illuminated the camp with a ghostly clarity. Her flashlight was still next to the extinguished campfire, her notebook open, as if she had left it hastily. "Claudia!" I shouted more forcefully, scanning the darkness. I turned on my flashlight and began inspecting the surroundings. About 20 meters from the camp, I found her footprints in the sand. And something else. A strange, undulating furrow that moved away toward the dunes. Claudia's footprint stopped abruptly next to that furrow, as if something had snatched her from the ground. Her red scarf lay partially buried in the sand. I picked it up, noticing small dark spots on the fabric. The desert had claimed Claudia in silence, without witnesses. And I was alone, with the night ahead and a growing fear coiling in my gut. Dawn found me preparing the all-terrain vehicle, loading only the essentials. I had spent the remaining hours of darkness tracking the perimeter of the camp without finding more clues. The radios weren't working, emitting only static when I tried to contact the base. The maddened compass spun uncontrollably, as if affected by some anomalous magnetic field. I studied Claudia's notebook, looking for clues. The last pages showed detailed drawings of hieroglyphics and an approximate map to what she believed was the location of the temple. I had also noticed something worrying. In the margins of several pages, small drawings of scales, increasingly elaborate, as if Claudia had been obsessed with that pattern. I am Alex Mercer, an anthropologist who exchanged university classrooms for life as a guide in the Sahara. I met Claudia at a conference in London, where she presented her controversial theories about forgotten Egyptian cults. British of Egyptian descent, brilliant and fearless, she conquered me with her passion for ancient mysteries. 3 years of marriage and joint expeditions, and her archaeological intuitions, almost supernatural at times, still surprised me. "You won't disappear like this," I muttered as I started the engine. The sun was already punishing my neck as I drove, following the strange furrow in the sand, which the wind had not yet completely erased. I followed the trail for hours until the all-terrain vehicle could no longer advance through increasingly rough terrain. I continued on foot, the relentless sun above my head, carefully rationing water. The furrow guided me toward a narrow canyon that didn't appear on any of our maps. At sunset, when dehydration began to affect my judgment, I spotted the impossible. A small oasis nestled between rocky walls. Scrawny palm trees surrounded a pool of crystalline water. Desperation overcame prudence, and I ran toward it. I stopped short a few meters away. On the damp sand of the shore, small green scales gleamed, identical to those Claudia had obsessively drawn in her notebook. The water stirred gently. I looked up and saw her slowly emerging among the waves, a creature from another world. Her head was that of a majestic serpent, with brilliant turquoise scales and penetrating yellow eyes. Her torso, although humanoid, was covered with tribal attire adorned with various amulets and pendants. From her waist, her body transformed into a powerful serpent tail with green scales and a creamy yellow belly that slid over the desert sand. Under the setting sun, this serpent deity watched over her domain with an imposing presence that inspired both fear and reverence. A serpentine tail extended beneath the water, occasionally breaking the surface with a fluid movement. "You have delayed, Alex," she said in a melodious voice that resonated with disturbing familiarity in my mind. "But I knew you would follow the trail." My name on her lips paralyzed me. Instinctively, my hand sought the knife on my belt. "What are you?" "How do you know who I am? Have you seen a woman? An archaeologist?" The creature smiled enigmatically, tilting her head in a way that awakened echoes in my memory. "They call me Neferet, and I know everything about you." She slid closer, the water barely disturbed by her movement. "The woman you seek has undertaken an ancient path that few humans would understand. Do you know where Claudia is? Is she alive?" "That depends on your definition of life," she replied cryptically. "I can take you to her if you're willing to follow me where human maps are of no use." We traveled during the night, when the temperature made progress less exhausting. Neferet slid over the sand with hypnotic grace, leaving an undulating trail similar to the one I had followed from the camp. I kept a prudent distance, the canteen and knife always within reach. "The temple that Claudia was looking for was buried on purpose," Neferet said, stopping at the top of a dune. "The ancient priests hid it when the Romans conquered Egypt. It contains knowledge too dangerous. I just want to find my wife and return to civilization." "Civilization," she repeated with a sad smile. "Such a recent and fragile concept." Her green eyes gleamed under the moonlight. "What would you do, Alex, if you discovered that Claudia is not exactly who you thought you knew?" That question disturbed me more than I wanted to admit. During that night, while we rested in the shadow of some rocks, I observed Neferet contemplating fascinated the wedding ring on my finger. "Claudia has an identical one," I commented. "Hieroglyphic designs that she herself chose. They mean eternally united, according to what she explained to me." "United beyond form," Neferet corrected. "The translation is not exact." "How do you know that?" Neferet looked away. "Ancient languages are my specialty." On the morning of the third day, while crossing a gorge, Neferet stopped abruptly. "Her essence is near," she whispered. "I can feel it." My heart raced. "Claudia? Where?" "First you must understand." She guided me toward a crack in the rocky wall that gave access to a hidden chamber. "This place contains truths that change lives." On the walls of the cavern, illuminated by a greenish glow of unknown origin, hieroglyphics were displayed, depicting women transforming into serpentine beings, immersing themselves in sacred waters and emerging with their new form. "The cult of Wadjet," Neferet explained, "the serpent goddess who protects and transforms the chosen ones." Among the symbols, I recognized many that Claudia had copied in her notebook. And then, in a niche carved into the rock, I saw something that froze my blood. Claudia's camera and a lock of her hair tied with her characteristic blue ribbon. "What does this mean? Where is she?" "Swing," I demanded with a trembling voice. Neferet slid her fingers over the hieroglyphics with a melancholic expression. "Claudia found this place before you. She followed the clues she had deciphered for years. The transformation had already begun in her months ago. Small scales on her legs that she carefully concealed. Recurring dreams of sliding under the sand. Rage invaded me. I advanced toward Neferet, wielding my knife. "What have you done to her? Where is she?" Neferet dodged my attack with supernatural ease and immobilized me against the wall with her tail, exerting enough pressure to make my breathing difficult. "I'm trying to save you, fool," she hissed near my face. "If we find the pyramid before the next eclipse, there is still hope for her. If not, the transformation will be irreversible." A sandstorm surprised us in open terrain when we were half a day away from reaching the pyramid. The sky darkened in minutes, and the air became unbreathable. Neferet protectively wrapped me with her body, creating a shield against the sand grains that lashed like small blades. "Don't separate," she ordered, her voice barely audible over the roar of the wind. When the storm subsided, we glimpsed in the distance an impossible shape emerging from the sand. A black pyramid, smaller than the great constructions of Giza, but equally imposing in its desolate location. Neferet visibly tensed. "We're late. They have already awakened." The ground vibrated beneath our feet. From the sand emerged 5 creatures similar to Neferet, but with black scales and eyes red as embers. They surrounded us with fluid movements, communicating among themselves with hisses and clicks. "Sisters," Neferet spoke. "I have brought the man as I promised." The betrayal hit me like a punch to the stomach. "Is this what you were guiding me for? As a sacrifice?" "To complete the ritual, we need human blood," she explained in a cold voice. "The blood of the beloved is the most powerful." The creatures advanced toward me, their jaws partly open, revealing translucent fangs that dripped a greenish liquid. Neferet hesitated for a crucial moment, her green eyes fixed on my ring. That moment of hesitation changed everything. "Run to the pyramid!" "Logically," she shouted, pushing me. "Find the central chamber with the pedestal!" She turned against her sisters while I ran for my life, pursued by furious hisses and the sound of scaly bodies sliding swiftly over the sand. The entrance of the pyramid was flanked by eroded statues of snake women. I entered into the darkness, surprised when torches with green flames lit spontaneously as I passed, revealing narrow corridors covered with hieroglyphics. I recognized symbols that Claudia had shown me in her research. Scenes of transformation, rituals, sacrifices. Stories of women chosen by Wadjet to preserve ancient knowledge, becoming immortal guardians at the cost of their humanity. The central chamber opened before me, an octagonal space with a pedestal in the center on which a pulsating red gem shone. I heard the combat outside. Neferet entered sliding, bleeding a greenish liquid from multiple wounds. "Touch it," she gasped, pointing to the gem. "Break it if necessary." "Why did you betray me and then save me?" "Because I remember, Alex." Her voice changed, adopting painfully familiar inflections. "I remember our first date in that London cafe in the rain, the day you proposed to me in the ruins of Karnak, the night studying ancient texts in our little house." My mind rejected the impossible, but every piece fit. Her knowledge about the ring, the exact way she tilted her head, the correction of the translation that only Claudia knew. "The night I disappeared," she continued, "I followed an ancient call while you slept. I found an underground passage, involuntarily activated a millennial seal. The transformation that had slowly begun in my dreams accelerated until it was complete." She approached, her face inches from mine. Those green eyes, the small scar on her right temple, the expression she adopted when trying to make me understand something important. "Claudia, part of her is still here, fighting against the collective mind of Wadjet. The others know it. That's why they must eliminate me." The walls trembled. The sisters were forcing the entrance. "The gem," she urged. "It's the stone of Wadjet. It can reverse or complete the transformation, depending on the intention. But it only works with blood voluntarily offered out of true love." My knife cut my palm without hesitation. Blood dripped onto the gem that began to glow with increasing intensity, pulsing to the rhythm of a human heart. Neferet, Claudia, approached the pedestal, her expression a mixture of fear and hope. "If this works," she whispered, "I will become who I was again. If it fails..." "It won't fail," I stated with a certainty born of desperation and love. The doors gave way. The Snake Sisters invaded the chamber, their silhouettes blurred by the blinding light now emanating from the center. Neferet placed her hands on the bloodied gem. A flash enveloped her, so intense that I was forced to close my eyes. A superhuman scream resonated in the chamber, followed by absolute silence. The light did not fade, but began to expand in concentric waves, reaching the Snake Sisters, who stopped in their tracks. When I could see again, the Snake Sisters had not turned into statues, but remained motionless, their red eyes slowly turning green. And there, where Neferet had been, lay Claudia. My Claudia, completely human, unconscious but breathing. The chamber began to tremble, not with destructive violence, but with a rhythmic pulse, as if the temple itself was awakening. Inscriptions on the walls glowed with green light, forming sequences that I vaguely recognized from Claudia's notebooks. I took her in my arms, while the Snake Sisters backed away, not with hostility, but with what seemed like reverence. One of them, the one who appeared to be the leader, bowed her head toward us and indicated an exit, different from the one I had used to enter. I followed the indicated path, carrying Claudia through corridors illuminated by that strange green light. The passage gently ascended until emerging not into the arid desert, but into a hidden valley, green and humid, protected between giant dunes, an improbable sanctuary. Claudia awoke as we crossed the threshold into this secret oasis. Her green eyes opened slowly, now with an inner glow they did not possess before. "You did it," she murmured in a weak but clear voice. "You broke the cycle." "What exactly happened, Zrania?" I asked, while gently placing her next to a crystalline water fountain. "The stone of Wadjet didn't just transform me," Claudia explained, slowly sitting up. "It has freed all of them. For millennia, they have been trapped in a cycle of transformation and sacrifice. Your blood, offered voluntarily out of love, not fear, broke the curse." The Snake Sisters emerged from the temple, now moving with a less predatory grace. Some retained their hybrid form, but their eyes had changed, showing intelligence and gratitude where before there was only ancestral hunger. "They were like me," Claudia continued. "Women chosen to preserve knowledge, but the ritual was corrupted by priests who feared their power. Now they are free to choose their form, their purpose." For days we remained in that hidden valley. Claudia regained strength, while I learned about this parallel world that had existed alongside ours for millennia. The sisters shared knowledge that humanity had forgotten. Cures for modern diseases, methods to make the desert green again, ways of communicating with the earth itself. One night, under a starry sky brighter than any I had seen before, Claudia looked at me with new determination. "We must return," she said. "Take some of this knowledge to the world. Not all of it, just what it's ready to receive." "And the sisters?" Zrania. "Some will come with us, adopting human form. Others will remain here, guardians of secrets that the world is not yet ready to know." At the following dawn, we began our return journey. We crossed the desert riding camels, now accompanied by two women of extraordinary beauty, with penetrating green eyes, dressed in large, fine fabrics that completely covered their bodies, of modest bearing, who observed the modern world with fascination and caution. 6 months later, our foundation for desert ecosystem research had revolutionized the science of environmental regeneration. Claudia directed international teams that transformed dunes into sustainable oases. No one, except us, knew the true origin of these techniques. At night, when we were alone, Claudia could still partially transform, an ability she retained as a gift from Wadjet. "To remind us who we really are," she explained to me once. And sometimes, while she slept, I would find her drawing in her notebook with closed eyes, maps of other hidden temples, other guardians waiting to be freed. "There is still much to do," she told me one night, as we watched the stars from the terrace of our house in Cairo. Her hand found mine, our rings shining under the moonlight. "But now, we are not alone in this mission." "Then we will continue," I replied, embracing her. "Together." Claudia smiled with that new wisdom she now carried in her gaze. On her ankle, a small green scale deliberately gleamed, not as an unwanted residue, but as a symbol of pride. It no longer faded under her skin, because she no longer needed to hide it. The desert guards many secrets. Some wait to be discovered. Others, as we discovered, wait to be freed.